In this video, we're going to talk about the PPP Easy Loan Forgiveness application. Now, if you're a sole proprietor, independent contractor, or self-employed, or you just want to know whether or not you qualify to use the easy application for the PPP loan forgiveness, this video is for you. But before we do, if this is your first time at our channel or you haven't subscribed, click on the subscribe button at the bottom. My name is Travis Sickle, Certified Financial Planner, helping you reach your financial goals. Now, before we get into the PPP Easy Loan Forgiveness application, I'm going to leave a link in the description at the bottom so you can print it out and follow along. Now, the first page, I'm going to pull it right up on the screen so you can follow along. The first page has 3 check boxes, and this is how you can figure out whether or not you qualify to fill out the PPP Loan Forgiveness application. Now, the first box, which will apply to most that are going to apply for the easy application or through the easy application, it's going to be this first checkbox right here. And it says the borrower is self-employed individual, a self-employed individual, independent contractor, or sole proprietor who had no employees. And what's important here is you not only can't have any employees at the time of the application, but also for 2019. Now, it doesn't explicitly say that right here, but it did say that did not include any employee salaries in the computation of average monthly payroll. So if this first checkbox applies to you, then you can jump ahead and go right into the easy application. Now, if you don't, there are 2 other ways to qualify, and that's checkboxes number 2 and number 3. Now, the first 2 paragraphs in both of these checkboxes are exactly the same. So it says the borrower did not reduce annual salary or hourly wages of any employee by more than 25% during the covered period or alternative covered period. So if that statement applies to you, then you have to go to the second part of each one of these check boxes and figure out if one of the 2 will also apply to you. Now, if it doesn't, if you can't say yes to this, then you have to go to the regular application and you can't use the easy application. And this second checkbox, the borrower did not reduce the number of employees or the average paid hours of employees between January 1st, 2020 and the end of the covered period. And I'm going to come back to this one in just a second, but let's just jump down to the third checkbox on the second part. And it says the borrower was unable to operate during the covered period at the same level of business activity before February 15th, 2020. And you can see it right here. This is the same thing as the safe harbor. And it's saying due to compliance with requirements established or guidance issued between March 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2020 by the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the CDC, and OSHA. So that is the same as the safe harbor that we saw on the last guidance. And if we pull up the certification page, you can see this first highlighted checkbox or line that you have to initial next to. It is the borrower did not reduce salaries or hourly wages by more than 25% for any employee during the covered period or alternative covered payroll covered period, which is the same paragraph as these 2 right here. So everyone is going to certify that. And if you're in this first section, then you don't have any employees. So again, it's still true. So you would check that off. And then these second 2 paragraphs right here, they're going to show up on this certification at the very bottom where you initialing, you're going to only choose at least one. So it's one or the other. And again, it's those same 2 checkboxes that we saw on these 2 checkboxes over here. And you want to look at that a little closer because there's going to be some instances where if you laid off or furloughed some employees, but their annual salaries were over $100,000, that they don't qualify for these calculations. So they're discluded or removed from penalizing you. It is the employees that are earning less than $100,000 on an annualized basis, because it says it right there. If we go back to the page, we could see that it says, I highlighted it right there. The term employee includes only those employees that did not receive during any single period during 2019 wages or salaries at an annualized rate of pay in an amount more than $100,000. Unless you were able to get your business back up and running fairly quickly after you received the PPP money, then it's going to be quite of a challenge to use the easy application. Because if you chose the 24 weeks versus the 8 weeks, then you're going to have to make sure that you're maintaining that payroll for a lot longer time on your own dime. So you have to make sure that your business is back up and running. Whereas if you chose the 8 weeks, it's a lot shorter time frame, but the challenge then becomes the amount that you applied for payroll could actually be less for what you can qualify for, because it's going to do that $15,385. So if your loan was bigger than that, then you're going to have a challenge getting 100% forgiveness. So if you chose the 8 weeks, then that means 25% would be 2 of those 8 weeks. So if you couldn't get back up and running to full capacity within 2 of those 8 weeks, then you wouldn't qualify. And if you chose the 24, then you have a little bit longer time, but that means you still have to get your payroll back up to 100% if you're waiting or looking at that 25% threshold. Again, that might be confusing because there's so many different scenarios on who would qualify to use this application. But if you're going through it, look at your own scenarios and let me know in the comments down below if you have a unique situation where you're uncertain of whether or not you qualify to use the easy application. Now, if you do qualify, it's actually pretty easy to fill out this application, or hopefully it's easy for you to fill out this application. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. It is a single page to whether or not or how much you qualify for the PPP loan forgiveness. So let's pull it up on the screen. So you can see here that at the very top, you're going to put your basic business information, your EIN, which is basically the social security number of your business. But if you're a sole proprietor, then you just put your social security number, put your business phone, primary contact, email address, and then you're going to put your SBA PPP loan number, then your PPP loan number from your lender, then the PPP loan amount. So for this example, let's just give an example, and we're going to say that your loan amount was $20,000. So PPP loan amount was $20,000, just so we can see how the math all works out. And then you want to put the date that you received the money and the employees at the time of loan application, then the employees at time of forgiveness application. And if you did get the EIDL advance, so it was that $1,000 multiplied by the amount of employees, then put that here, put your EIDL application number, because remember, that's going to be reduced. This number will be reduced by the amount that you were given in advance of the EIDL grant, or the EIDL advance amount. And then here's your payroll schedule, if it's weekly, bi-weekly, twice a month, or monthly. And you can check off other because you don't run payroll. And then you have the covered period and the alternative covered period. Remember, the covered period could be either the 8 weeks or the 24 weeks. And the alternative payroll covered period is the payroll date. So it's that next start of the next payroll date after you received the money. So you have to figure out which covered period you want to use, and then you're going to use the alternative covered payroll period here. You're just going to want to count it out for the covered period. So it's 56 days for the 8 weeks and 168 days for the 24 weeks up until December 31st. So December 31st is the last date that you can use the PPP loan money and get forgiveness. And if your PPP loan was in excess of $2 million, check this box. Now, lines 1 through 4, payroll costs. So you're not required, before we get into payroll costs, you're not required to have business mortgage interest payments, business rents or lease payments, or business utility payments. You can actually use 100% for payroll costs. So for this walkthrough, I'm just going to take the full amount and say that we used it for payroll. So I'm going to put $20,000. And then we're just going to say that those are all zeros. And then for line 5, all you want to do is add all those up, and that's going to be your $20,000. And then the PPP loan amount that we said before was $20,000. And then you're going to take line 1 and divide it by 0.6. So I'll take out the calculator so you can see it. And that is going to be $20,000 divided by 0.6. And that's going to be $33,333. And then you're going to want to take the smallest of these 3 lines, which is $20,000. And that is the amount of our loan forgiveness, which is 100%. And that is it. It's that quick and simple to go through the easy application. And don't forget that certification page. Now, your lender might have their own online version, but it's a good idea to go through the paper version just so you have your notes and you can walk through it to see which scenario is best for your particular situation and for your small business. And if you have questions, comments, leave them in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe and leave your comments down at the bottom.